afternoon. The first item of business is portfolio questions on communities and local government. Questions 5 and 8 are grouped together. And I call question 1. Anas Sarwar, please.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what it is doing to tackle inequalities among low-income families.
Aileen Campbell.
Thank you. Last year we invested over £1.4 billion to support low-income families, including £522 million on affordable homes, £84 million to tackle fuel poverty and energy efficiency, and over £100 million to mitigate the worst impacts of UK government welfare cuts. The Scottish Budget outlines an investment of £3.4 billion in social security spending, including £21 million to introduce our Scottish Child Payment. By year-end, a low-income family with one child in the first year of life will be entitled to receive an annual total of £1,572 in new Scottish benefits, more than £600 than they would get under previous UK benefits.
Anas Sarwar.
Thank you. Does the Cabinet Secretary recognise that those good efforts around social security are undermined by continued cuts to local authorities? I welcome the reversal of the decision to cut the Blair Vardick site, for example, as one, but less of a cut is not more money. Does she think a £205 million cut and closures will help to increase or decrease inequality in Glasgow?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, we believe we've given a fair budget to local government. We understand, though, that there are lots of challenges across public finances. I would say, though, however, that our good efforts, all of those things that I outlined in my answer to Anas Sarwar, where they're being undermined is by the continued pursuit of austerity and welfare reforms by the UK government. £100 million, over £100 million mitigating the worst impacts of welfare reform. Imagine if we didn't have to spend that. Therefore, I would put a hand out to Anas Sarwar and ask him, would he not join with us in recognising that we need all the powers over social security, all the powers over all employment to come to this Scottish Parliament. We need independence to be able to properly tackle poverty in the way that I think we want to in this government.
Question 2, Annabel Ewing.
To ask the Scottish Government what provision it has made for building affordable homes in the next financial year.
Minister Kevin Stewart.
Kevin Stewart, I think it was. I don't know if you said that. Presiding Officer, we're committed to ensuring everyone has access to a safe, warm and affordable home that meets their needs. And that is why we have increased the affordable housing supply budget by £17 million to £843 million in 2020-21. And we have also committed to £300 million interim funding certainty for 2021-22. We have transformed access to affordable housing with a record investment of over £3.5 billion to deliver our 50,000 affordable homes target, including 35,000 homes for social rent over the course of this Parliament. This government can be very proud of its record in affordable housing, having now delivered more than 89,000 affordable homes since 2007.
Annabel Ewing.
I thank the Minister for his answer and very much welcome the extra £17 million for the coming financial year, and indeed note the considerable progress that is being made across the piece, including with regard to affordable housing. But I would like to ask the Minister on the important issue of the Housing to 2040 vision, what wider progress is being made by the Scottish Government so that we indeed will have a housing sector which meets the needs of Scotland's changing population.
Minister.
Presiding Officer, it's clear that Scotland's housing system must help to address many of the challenges that we face, such as our ageing population, which means that business as usual is not an option. We also need to think carefully about how we support the distinct needs of rural communities and ensure that we have a housing system that works for us all. In the programme for government 2018-19, we committed to work with the whole of Scotland on a shared vision for how our homes and communities should look and feel by 2040. And we have since then had the wisdom and the expertise put into our consultation, and between the 2nd of December and 28th of February, we consulted extensively on our draft vision and principles and the options and choices to get there. And we have received a wealth of feedback and ideas which we will carefully assess as we develop the Housing to 2040 route map and vision.
Graeme Simpson, briefly.
Thank you. The announcement in the draft budget of an extra £300 million for 2021 is welcome, but that's only enough to deliver less than half the extra 10,000 houses a year that are needed. Does the Minister not agree that that figure should be increased?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, I'm very grateful to the Finance Secretary, Kate Forbes, for providing that £300 million to give comfort and certainty beyond the current Parliament. I'm quite sure that Ms Forbes will look very carefully at what is required for the future. But what would be helpful in all of this is if we actually had a UK budget which gave us the certainty that we need to carry out a full and comprehensive spending review so that we can deal with Scotland's finances, including monies for housing, in an appropriate manner.
Let's try and speed things up a bit. Question 3, Alison Harris.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government what analysis it has carried out of the impact on housing and other local government services of the recent poor weather and what additional assistance it has offered to councils to respond to this.
Minister.
Presiding Officer, any impact on housing and other local government services due to the recent poor weather is a matter for individual local authorities. The Scottish Government, for its part, has activated the Bellwyn scheme to provide an additional revenue support to local authorities to assist with the immediate and unforeseen costs that meet the qualifying criteria in the aftermath of emergency incidents such as the recent storms. The scheme was most recently activated on the 25th of February following Storm Dennis.
Alison Harris.
I thank the Minister for his answer. And obviously throughout Scotland, the recent poor weather has caused fields, roads, railways and local communities to flood. And this can impact on housing estates and housing construction. So could the Minister update Parliament in light of the flooding's impact on construction, taking into account the large number of homes that were still to be built before the flooding, whether it remains confident in its goal of building 50,000 affordable homes by the end of this Parliament?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, I am confident that we will deliver 50,000 affordable homes during the course of this Parliament. We are on track at this moment in time to do so. But what we must not forget is the risks that there are. Weather is one of them, but that can be counteracted. But one of the biggest risks, of course, is Brexit. And the fact that we may lose European nationals who are in the construction workforce, which may cause some difficulties. Beyond that, Presiding Officer, I think we should also take cognizance of the current situation with COVID-19, the coronavirus, because that itself may cause problems, not only just in the construction sector, but in many other parts of the economy. And that is why the Health Secretary, Jean Freeman, has been at the forefront of trying to ensure that we do our very best in tackling that virus.
Question 4, Willie Rennie.
To ask the Scottish Government whether the next version of the Scottish planning policy will include requirements for all new housing developments to have access to superfast broadband.
Minister.
Presiding Officer, we are currently considering how planning policy in combination with other devolved powers might best ensure provision of digital infrastructure in new homes as part of our early engagement for preparation of National Planning Framework 4.
Willie Rennie.
That's a very helpful answer, and I hope the Minister does come forward with this proposal, because it is a nonsense that we can get new housing developments without superfast broadband already built into those homes. Just like other utilities, it should be available automatically, and far too many developments are having it without. So when it's published in September, I hope the Minister does include it in the Scottish planning policy in the way that he's described.
Minister.
Presiding Officer, I would encourage all members to engage with the formulation of National Planning Framework 4 and the review of Scottish planning policy in order to deal with issues such as this. I would ask members to take a look at the website and the discussion papers that are there around about MPF 4 and Scottish planning policy. Get engaged, try and get your constituents engaged so that we have the right planning policies in place to take this country forward in the future.
Question 5, Alexander Stewart.
So obviously my question was lodged in advance of the negotiations concluding, but to ask the Scottish Government what action it will take to protect local authority services in light of the claim by COSLA that proposals in the draft budget will hit vulnerable communities the hardest.
Cabinet Secretary.
As confirmed by the Cabinet Secretary for Finance at stage 1 of the budget bill, we have taken action to allocate an additional £95 million in revenue support for local government. This will deliver a total increase in revenue funding from the Scottish Government to support the delivery of local government services, including those for the most vulnerable in 2020-21 of £589 million.
Alexander Stewart.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. Councils at the end of their tether thanks to years of underfunding by the Scottish Government. The recent £95 million does not account for inflation nor restore the years of cuts, and there will still be a £117 million black hole when it comes to capital funding. The Government's reluctance to properly resource councils has left the financial burden to be carried out by hard-working Scots. So why, Cabinet Secretary, does this Government seem to be undermining and underfunding local government?
Cabinet Secretary.
As I've said in a previous response, we've tried to treat local government fairly, but we recognise there are challenges across the whole of public finance, not driven by decisions that this government has taken, driven by 10 years of austerity by the Members' Party at the UK government. And I really hope that he's as vocal with his UK government colleagues as he is repeatedly in this chamber, because if they reversed austerity, if they stopped welfare reforms, if they tried to rebalance the economy in a way that worked for people across the country, then our communities would feel the benefit. We are treating local government fairly. We've put in £95 million extra into the budget as voted last week, but I would remind the member to also have a wee look at his leadership income tax proposals, which again would stand to benefit those in higher earning households and disproportionately disadvantage those in the lower income brackets. He needs to have a wee look at his own party policy before he comes here with a brass neck telling and challenging us on how we support our vulnerable communities.
Question 8, Rhoda Grant.
To ask the Scottish Government what analysis it has carried out of the impact on communities of any reduced levels of council services.
Cabinet Secretary.
Local authorities are independent, democratically elected bodies with their own powers and responsibilities. Ultimately, it is for local elected representatives to make local decisions on how best to deliver services for their local communities. For our part, the Scottish Government is providing local government with a substantial funding package worth in total £11.4 billion, which includes an increase in support for spending on core revenue services of £589 million or 5.8% in 2020-21.
Rhoda Grant.
People with vision impairment in Highland will lose the support of Sight Action at the end of this month. This is a statutory service for local government, but led by NHS Highland under the lead agency model. In light of the £205 million cut to local government, what reassurance can the Minister give to my vision impaired constituents that they will receive the support they require after the end of the month?
Cabinet Secretary.
Again, I would point the member to the additional funding that we put into local government funding and to recognise that local government is autonomous. What I would say, though, because I'm not aware of some of the details, is that I'm happy to engage with Rhoda Grant if she wants to furnish us with further information about that, to look at it. But we have a number of powers and a number of policies in place to try and help people cope with any visual impairment or any disabilities. And again, we can furnish her with further information if she needs constituents to get some support and help.
Colin Beattie, briefly.
Can the Cabinet Secretary set out how the Scottish Government, by providing a funding package of £11.4 billion for 2021, 91% of which councils have complete autonomy to allocate, is ensuring that councils have the means to deliver council services despite years of UK government austerity and cuts to the Scottish budget?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I think the member is correct to point out the years of continued austerity, 10 years of continued austerity, which will have an impact on public services and public life. That's why we've endeavoured to treat local government fairly. That's why when we came into office back in 2007 that we endeavoured to take away some of the ring fencing. That's why the local authorities have autonomy over 90%, 91% of the funding streams. They are responsible for how they spend their money, and that's right. That's absolutely correct that local local authorities have that autonomy. They're democratically elected bodies in their own right. That's why we continue to work with them on the local governance review. That's why we want to try and further empowerment. That's why Kate Forbes is working on the fiscal empowerment element of the local governance review to see what more we can do to work together to ensure that we can rebalance democracy for the people of Scotland.
Question 6, Tom Arthur.
Ask the Scottish Government how it tackles poverty in the Renfrewshire South constituency.
Cabinet Secretary.
Sorry, apologies. We are investing over £3.5 billion to deliver 50,000 more affordable homes, including 35,000 for social rent over this parliamentary term. We have made £71.438 million available to Renfrewshire Council over this period to provide affordable, energy-efficient housing. Since 2015, Renfrewshire has received £28 million of Attainment Challenge funding to reduce the poverty-related attainment gap, including almost £13 million to schools through the pupil equity funding. Renfrewshire Council was allocated £1.4 million from the £50 million Town Centre Fund and is working with partners on a number of projects which will benefit Renfrewshire South constituency.
Tom Arthur.
I'm very grateful to the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. I wonder if she would agree with me that, given all of the additionalities that come forth as a result of investment in housing and improved mental and physical health, this government's commitment to housing demonstrates its commitment to a well-being economy.
Cabinet Secretary.
Absolutely, and I think that's the fundamental point about housing. It is more than just bricks and mortar. It has a reach and it has an impact that's not just beneficial for me and my colleague Kevin Stewart with explicit responsibility for housing. It has an impact into the health portfolio. It has an impact into the attainment. If you have a safe, warm home, a child can do their homework far better than if they're feeling cold and if they're feeling vulnerable. So it has an impact across the whole of government. It has an impact that will contribute to our wellbeing economy. It meets the outcome requirements for a national performance framework. And in terms of a figure that can illustrate some of this, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation showed that child poverty rates differed between ourselves and the rest of the UK by 6 percentage points. That's because of the investment that we have put into housing to make sure that people's household budgets are reduced and that make sure that we can continue to work hard to deliver equality and fairness for the people of the country. And that's why we'll continue to support and invest in housing.
Question 7, Rachel Hamilton.
Engagement the Community Secretary has had with community councils regarding community ownership of land through the Scottish Land Fund.
Cabinet Secretary.
The Scottish Government values the role of community councils who undertake a wide range of activities for the benefit of their community, but I have not had any direct engagement with community councils regarding community ownership of land through the Scottish Land Fund.
The Cabinet.
No, I haven't called you. Sorry, you're quite right. You be nippy on your feet. Rachel Hamilton.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer? And I want to be very generous and thank the Scottish Government and Buccleuch Estates for assisting the Newcastle Community Trust on the successful transfer of land, which will be hugely beneficial to their community. Can I also ask the Scottish Government how it will support the community wish to buy out Home Hill, part of Langham Moor, in order to prioritise the need for more housing to be made available in the community, particularly in the light of the devastation that Newcastle has faced following Storm Dennis?
Cabinet Secretary.
I'm glad that the member recognises the value of the RCGF fund. It is a transformative fund. It's transforming lives and communities across the country with a purpose of regeneration. We are really proud of what that has achieved. In fact, we have just outlined in a report some of the impact that that fund has had, and I'm glad that it's benefiting constituents in Rachel Hamilton's constituency. We'll continue to engage, happy to engage with the member on some of the particular issues that she wants to raise. I will offer to meet with her if she wants to further discuss some of the plans that the communities in her constituency have and make sure that we can help support them as best we can to make some of the applications that they require to ensure that they feel empowered and that they can benefit from some of the policies and work that this government is taking forward.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. That concludes questions on communities and local government. I'm going to move straight on to questions on social security and older people and advise you that questions 6 and 7 are grouped together. Question 1 not lodged. Question 2, Dean Lockhart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it plans to use its social security policies to address reported high levels of economic inactivity.
Cabinet Secretary Shirley-Ann Somerville.
We are already using the powers we have to tackle long-standing issues. Our employability service, Fair Start Scotland, is delivering personalised support to 19,000 people, with 5,000 people already supported into jobs. We're taking forward the Disability Employment Action Plan, which aims to at least halve the disability employment gap by 2038. We'll also deliver the Job Start payment in spring 2020, which aims to support 5,000 young people into work. And I would also point out that Scotland's unemployment rate at 3.5% is lower than the UK's at 3.8%.
Dean Lockhart.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response. The Cabinet Secretary will be aware of the latest figures which show that economic inactivity in Scotland at 22% is well above the UK average of 20%. To put this into perspective, that's over 750,000 people in Scotland who are not active in the labour market. Given that recent figures have shown that only 4% of those who do enter the Scottish Government's Fair Start Scotland programme are still in work 26 weeks after starting the programme, is the Cabinet Secretary really satisfied that her government is doing enough to address economic inactivity in Scotland?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, the Government will also always endeavour to do what we can and continuously strive to do more. But can I point out to the member that the main reasons for inactivity reported are long-term sick, 28.3%, students, 24.5%, and looking after the family or home, 18.8%. So absolutely more than happy to consider these aspects, as should all the members in the Chamber. But I think using the figures that Dean Lockhart suggested perhaps gives not exactly a full picture and is unfair to the work that is already ongoing in Fair Start Scotland.
Question 3, Joan McAlpine.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government, in the light of its commitment to uphold single-sex exemptions under the Equality Act 2010, what its response is to concerns that this could be undermined by policies allowing male hospital patients who identify as female, including those who have made no physical changes, to be placed in wards that match their gender identity.
Cabinet Secretary.
The Scottish Government expects everyone to be treated with consideration, dignity and respect when accessing and using NHS services. NHS staff will make every effort to ensure that the privacy and dignity of all patients are maintained in Scottish hospitals. This Government supports the appropriate use of the single-sex exemptions by service providers where it is proportionate and means of achieving a legitimate aim.
Joan McAlpine.
Thank you. I welcome that, but NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde's gender reassignment policy review says on page 17 that a female patient distressed at the presence of a male-bodied trans-identified person in the next bed should be told that person is female and that her complaint is similar to a white woman complaining about a black patient in the next bed. Does the Cabinet Secretary understand that such statements in official documents cast doubt on assurances that the Government is committed to maintaining women's privacy and dignity and the single-sex exemptions in the Equality Act? And will she speak to NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde about reviewing this policy? Thank you.
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, this Government does expect all service providers, including health boards, to take account of everyone's rights when developing policies and to ensure all rights, including those of women, are protected. Health boards should assess each situation individually, sensitively using their experience and expertise to determine the appropriate course of action while fulfilling the responsibilities under the Equality Act. I say once again that this Government supports the single-sex exceptions in the 2010 Equality Act, which allows for trans people to be excluded when this is a proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim. All service providers are encouraged to know their rights in this area, and the Equality and Human Rights Commission published a statutory code of practice which assists providers with understanding the relevant issues in this area.
2 members wanting supplementary, so please be brief. Joanne Lamont, followed by Patrick Harvey.
Thank you. Can I ask what role any Scottish Government ministers had in the development of this policy? And given the clear argument that objecting to a male-bodied person in a women-only space is akin to racism, will she confirm that the Government will, as a matter of urgency, meet with the Health Board to emphasise the rights in the Equality Act? And it shouldn't be up to the individual to know, as you suggest, what the rights are. It's the responsibility of these organisations to allow these rights to be enforced.
Cabinet Secretary.
As I made clear in my second answer to Joan McAlpine, the Government absolutely supports the single-sex exceptions in the 2010 Act, and also that every service provider, including health boards, should take account of the Equality Act and the single-sex exceptions that are in that. Again, I stress that there are statutory codes of practice which are available to all service providers, including health boards, and I would encourage all health boards and indeed all service providers to ensure that they are up to date with their knowledge on this. And again, I re-stress the government's support for the use of single-sex exemptions if they deem it appropriate, where it's a proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim.
Patrick Harvey.
Doesn't this come down to the long-standing principle that treating trans women as though they are men or trans men as though they are women is a breach of their human rights? And that is why we have a Gender Recognition Act in the first place and should seek to improve it.
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I think Patrick Harvey raises a very important point. These I absolutely appreciate are difficult issues to debate, and there are very strongly held views in many areas of this, but I would encourage all members, and I would encourage, indeed as I have before, all service providers to be aware of their obligations and their responsibilities under the Equality Act, and to know exactly what their responsibilities are in this area, so that there can be a dignified and responsible debate on this topic.
Question 4, Patrick Harvey.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government what action it is taking to ensure that it meets its poverty reduction targets.
Cabinet Secretary.
Our Tackling Child Poverty Delivery Plan, backed by a £50 million fund, outlines the actions we are taking. This includes committing £16 million to parental employment support, which will help parents enter and progress in work, almost doubling funded early learning and childcare free hours to 1,140, and the introduction of the new Scottish Child Payment, which will give £10 per week per child to the families who need it most. The first update on our Tackling Child Poverty Delivery Plan showed that 48 out of the 58 actions in the plan are in progress or being delivered.
Patrick Harvey.
Thank you. There are many actions that I think have broad support across the political spectrum, and the Scottish Child Payment will be an important step forward. But the Scottish Government's projections about the extent to which it will reduce child poverty are based on an expectation of an 83% take-up. And the Scottish Fiscal Commission has revised this downward to 74%. What is the Scottish Government going to do about that anomaly? Do they intend to reject that forecast, take additional measures to increase uptake, or are they going to revise downward their expectation of how much this policy will actually be effective?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, we're certainly not revising down our wishes for what we want to see for the Scottish Child Payment. The Scottish Fiscal Commission are working on the information that they have at the moment. What we are working with them on as we go forward is actually to demonstrate to them what we're doing in terms of benefit take-up, what we're doing in terms of the publicity, and what we're doing in terms of our work with stakeholders to increase that. So I appreciate that the work that has gone on by the Fiscal Commission to get to the forecasting levels that they are, and I look forward to my officials working with them to be able to demonstrate that we think we can do so much more than that as we move forward with this groundbreaking achievement.
David Stewart, briefly.
Thank you, President Officer. The Best Start grant helps the government meet the poverty reduction target. What formula will the Cabinet Secretary use for future uprating of this formula, and will the Cabinet Secretary report on possible cumulative effect of any freeze in future upratings?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, the Best Start grant is one measure to support children in this area, but as I mentioned in my first answer to Patrick Harvey, the Scottish Child Payment, which is coming into force this year, will play an even larger part. So, if the Best Start grant had been increased by inflation, it would have went up by around £10. Instead, the Scottish Government is introducing the Scottish Child Payment, which will see £520 going to a family if they are eligible. We will, of course, take decisions on the uprating of the Best Start grant in each annual budget process, and I would note in the process that we are currently ongoing that Scottish Labour did not put forward a recommendation that they would actually want to spend the money in that manner in their discussions with the Cabinet Secretary for Finance.
Question 5, Colin Smith.
Thank you, President Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what assessment it has made of the impact of universal credit on rent arrears in the south of Scotland.
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I am deeply concerned about the impact of universal credit in Scotland, not just on rent arrears, but also on the wider anxiety and hardship this is undoubtedly causing. On 7th of January, the Scottish Government published its second follow-up to the 2019 Annual Report on Welfare Reform, assessing the impact of UK Government policy on housing. Although there is no region-specific data, this report made it clear that since universal credit was introduced in 2013, rent arrears in Scotland have been steadily increasing. COSLA found that between March 2016 and March 2018, rent arrears in full-service areas in Scotland rose by an average of 26%. The UK Government must start listening to the evidence, fix the problems with universal credit and make this a benefit which works for people, not against them.
Colin Smith.
Thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. Dumfries and Galloway House and Partnership have told me that 75% of tenants on universal credit has rent arrears, and the Council has reported that crisis grant applications have risen by 26% in the last year. It's a year since the Cabinet Secretary committed to an evaluation of Scottish choices, including the option of landlords receiving direct payments by default. So will the Cabinet Secretary listen to the many voices asking for the Government to use the powers they have to ensure that payments are made to landlords as default to help tackle this growing problem of arrears?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I do recognise that there are calls for the payments to be made directly to landlords, but I would stress to the member that the policy that we have at the moment about this being a choice for the individuals was one that came to after consultation with people with lived experience of universal credit and of the benefit system when they are asking to have a choice on these issues. So, of course, I'll listen very carefully to particularly the landlord organisations and representatives who are looking to make that change, but I will also listen very carefully to the individuals who have asked for that flexibility to remain with them.
Thank you. Because Mr Smith moved on to the general question here, I can ask Mr Patterson for his supplementary, because you're not south of Scotland.
Thanks very much, Presiding Officer. Can the Cabinet Secretary outline what impact Scottish Choices has had on mitigating the impact of this policy? And would she agree that without full control over welfare, the Scottish Government and this Parliament is unfortunately limited in what it can do to support people on universal credit?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, we are using our limited powers to try and make the delivery of universal credit better suited to the needs of people who claim it. That includes giving people the choice to have their housing costs paid direct to their landlord or to have their payment twice monthly. These are very, very small changes, however, that we can make, and it does not take away the fundamental flaws of universal credit. Only the full devolution of social security powers would achieve that.
Question 6, Liam Kerr.
Presiding Officer, to ask the Scottish Government how it helps older people maintain their independence.
Minister Christina McKelvey.
Work supporting older people's independence happens right across the whole of the Scottish Government. We are supporting older people's services as part of the further £100 million transfer to local authorities in 2021 for investment in health and social care and mental health, bringing the total support for integration to £811 million for 2021. And taking an intersectional approach to older people, we have developed regulations to give disabled people the right to make adaptations to common areas, issued guidance for local authorities to support delivery of more wheelchair accessible housing, and funded organisations, some amazing organisations that support independent living. We also continue to invest £210 million per year in the National Concessionary Fares Scheme for older and disabled people.
Liam Kerr.
Thank the Minister for that answer. Now, in 2017, the Scottish Government published a research paper on older people in employment in Scotland, and this included 3 recommendations for ways in which the Scottish Government could help older people in work. So, launch a publicity campaign, lead events and workshops, and review and promote opportunities for lifelong learning. Can the Minister outline how the Government have fulfilled each of these recommendations, please?
Minister.
The member will know that Jamie Hepburn, my colleague, is leading on the fairer work principles in Scotland right now, and a lot of that takes into account some of the issues that we have with an older workforce. For my part in all of this, I'm taking cognizance of the fact that just in a short 9 months' time, we will have more over 75s in our population than we currently have now, which is only in 2021. We will also have more people now in the workforce who are over 50, so I'm taking a keen interest in all of that, especially some of the challenges that are facing older people in the workforce. So some of the work I'm doing with the Women's Convention around about menopause in the workplace, around about disabled people in the workplace, through the Fairer Scotland work. Also the work that I'm doing in the public sector equality duty and reviewing that, taking real cognizance of older people in the workplace in that as well. The specific point about the advertising campaign and stuff like that, I'll make sure I can get some information from Mr Hepburn, from Mr Kerr to do that. But be rest assured that we're working closely to make sure that our older workforce are in flexible workplaces that support them if you're a carer or if you're facing some challenges with your health and a long-term condition. And all of that has been taken into account when developing our strategy for older people in the workplace.
Question 7, Brian Whittle.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on what progress it's making in implementing the proposals in its paper, A Fairer Scotland for Older People, a Framework for Action.
Minister.
Thank you. Yeah, the Scottish Government is working with the Older People Strategic Action Forum to develop our first annual report monitoring the progress of A Fairer Scotland for Older People, a framework for action. The annual report will be published in April 2020, so it's coming very, very soon, and will report on the progress of all 56 actions contained in the framework, as well as identifying the next steps. And I met just last week with the Action Forum, and they're providing real expertise in formulating our annual report. The work they have done and their organisations are doing to realise the actions is both extensive and very, very exciting. So look out for the report when it's published next month.
Making Mr Whittle smile. Brian Whittle.
And you know how difficult that is, Deputy Presiding Officer. Can I thank the Minister for that answer? And does she agree with me that ensuring that there is access to activity in later life enables not only a longer life, but a better quality of life, tackling issues such as poor physical and mental health, as well as loneliness? And if so, what is the Scottish Government doing to make these opportunities available for all?
Minister.
Yeah, absolutely, and that ties into some of the work that we're doing around about fairer work and how we can ensure people are maintained longer in the workplace. But you're absolutely on the money when it comes to how do we tackle some of the challenges. And for many old people, social isolation and loneliness is one of the biggest issues that they face right now. So the work we're doing in our social isolation and loneliness strategy, working with older people, working with the Action Forum, and taking some of the learning and experience that they've got and applying that to how we work with other organisations to deliver services that prevent social isolation and loneliness, but tackle it when people are experiencing it. And just this morning I spent at the Generations Working Together conference, spent time with young people and older people who are working together to, you know, bridge that generation gap, to take away some of the negative stereotypes and deal with some of the ageism that we currently have in our society right now, which would maybe prevent people from taking part in local organisations or events that are available to them. So you're on the money with that, and we're on the ball with it as well, but look out for the report when it's published and you'll see the progress we've made. Thanks.
Question 8, Sarah Boyack.
To ask the Scottish Government what action it is taking in response to reports of an increase in the number of people who are entitled to carers allowance not claiming it.
Cabinet Secretary.
We set out a range of actions to increase the number of people claiming all our benefits in our benefit take-up strategy published in October last year. Last week I announced funding of £600,000. This will support work on benefit take-up of Scottish social security benefits amongst hard-to-reach groups, single parents and people with particular barriers such as mental or physical disabilities. This builds on our work to increase uptake for carers allowance in the Young Carers Grant through, for example, regular promotion of the carers allowance supplement and material on the Young Scot website to encourage younger carers to claim the support that they are entitled to. We have also introduced a duty on local authorities to provide advice to carers on income maximisation, which covers the carers allowance.
Sarah Boyack.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response? There is work happening which is welcome, but will the Cabinet Secretary take note of the fact that the numbers who have underlying entitlement in the Government's own statistics to August, it shows that overall numbers are down and thousands fewer have entitlement only. In response to the Oxfam report and the multi-billion-pound effort unpaid carers contribute to society, the First Minister recently said she'd like to see that support increased and extended, financially and otherwise. So ahead of Carers Week 2020, will the Cabinet Secretary bring forward the planned consultation on wider changes to carers allowance, which wasn't due to begin until next year?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, we are, as the member correctly says, due to consult on the carers allowance within 2021. This goes along with the framework and timeframe that we have for social security benefits as we move forward for the devolution, and the work that's ongoing just now is particularly on disability assistance. We do, of course, continue, however, to meet with stakeholder organisations and carers themselves directly to discuss with them what they would like to see as we move forward with the devolution of the carers allowance, and this will, I'm sure, be something which we will take into very serious consideration at that point.
Thank you. And can I remind Ms Boyk and others, you should be in for the beginning of the section of portfolio questions in which you hope to ask a question. Don't come in the middle of it. That concludes Social Security and portfolio and older people questions. And